Joining us now, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, conveniently is here for us, a former FDA commissioner, CNBC contributor. He also serves on the board of Pfizer and Illumina. His new book, Uncontrolled Spread, Why COVID-19 Crushed Us and How We Can Defeat the Pandemic, is out now and debuted at number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list this week. And, got a couple of things, Doctor. So we just heard, I thought the same thing Becky did. It's like, you know, wow, I had the placebo, now I'm dead. I'm not signing up for that next trial, I don't think. So that's a problem. And you have pointed out many times, we can't find, there's going to come a time where we got no one to test it on because there's going to be no unvaccinated people left. So somehow they found 700 people that hadn't been vaccinated to do the test on. But as we go forward, it's going to be hard to do some of these tests.
Well, look, this was a global trial. I'm not worried about the fact they stopped it early. They have a big data set. They can continue to collect a large safety data set by just administering this to people. This is a phenomenal result. I mean, this is a profound game changer to have an oral pill that had this kind of effect, this magnitude of effect, in patients who are at high risk, who are already symptomatic. There's every expectation, based on just how this drug works, that if you moved it earlier in the line of care on patients maybe who are exposed and aren't symptomatic yet, or patients who aren't as great risk, you're going to see even a greater result. So this is quite profound. And the other thing I just would point out is the team behind this drug. So Merck licensed this drug. The team behind this drug, Wendy Holman and her husband, Wayne Holman, were the team that also invented the first successful antibody against Ebola. That was highly successful. Right. I was at FDA at the time, so I became familiar with them. So this is a very good drug development, drug hunting team that was behind this therapeutic here. But this is a phenomenal result. And remember, we have 2 other drugs in advanced development, one by Pfizer, the company I'm on the board of, and one by Roche. We may have multiple therapeutics that could be taken at home to prevent COVID disease.
What does the side effect profile look like? It looked good. And what's the most common thing to worry about? Anything?
Look, there were some things that came up preclinically in the animal models, but in the human trials, as best I know, the side effect profile looks pretty clean. I have not seen the underlying data set, but all the top-line reports are that this looks pretty clean. But also remember, this is going to be a short-term administration. You're not going to be taking this drug for 6 months or 12 months. You're going to be taking it for 5 days, perhaps even shorter if it's used in post-exposure prophylaxis. So typically, you know, if you're taking something over a very short-term administration, the safety profile is generally pretty good. The margin for safety issues is much broader.
Right. Hey, Scott, fair or unfair to compare the efficacy of this to Regeneron? Obviously, you need to go to a hospital to get Regeneron, but it looks in that case that those rates are, you know, the efficacy is 70% plus. This is 50% plus. Is this an apples and oranges situation completely, and we shouldn't even have that conversation?
Well, you can always have the conversation. I think clinically it's apples and oranges. We will have monoclonal antibodies that can be delivered in a doctor's office subcutaneously. So that's going to change the administration of those drugs and make it much simpler. But the bottom line is these are targeting very different mechanisms. So you could even use them together. If you have a high-risk patient who comes into the hospital with COVID disease with a lot of symptoms and risk factors, you may use this drug and the monoclonal antibody and get an even more efficacious effect from the drugs in combination. So it's going to be a real therapeutic advance, give a lot of optionality to doctors. I'm sure they're going to be studied in combination if this drug is eventually authorized, and I believe it will be in high-risk patients. And so it's just another, you know, arrow in our quiver, and it's really, from a top-line result, it's a phenomenal result for an orally available drug that can be taken at home that appears to have a good safety profile.
Scott, this is really exciting. The biggest downside I can see to this is that we've purchased 1.7 million doses of it. Everybody's going to want this. If you get sick, you're going to think, this is what I would like to take. It's going to be hard to get, just like it's hard to get some of the other monoclonal antibodies and even Regeneron at this point, if there are shortages of these things. All of the things you talked about sound amazing, but it's not going to be given to patients who have just been exposed because there's not going to be enough for the people who really need it, at least not for a while. The other thing is this study was only done on unvaccinated people. Does that mean that the FDA will only approve it for use in unvaccinated individuals? And is that almost offering an additional incentive to people who haven't gotten vaccinated yet, saying, I don't want to, if it means that I can't get this great pill?
Yeah, I think depending on what the safety profile looks like, then the FDA's confidence around the safety of this product, you could see a broader authorization based on this data set. There's no reason that it would just be authorized in a narrow population in which it's studied, because you'd be willing to extrapolate that the efficacy of an antiviral in one setting will be appear in other settings as well. I don't know how broad the agency would be willing to extrapolate from this data set, but they have been willing to extrapolate in similar circumstances. In terms of the supply, Merck has said that they'll be able to produce 10 million doses this year, but they'll be able to ramp production pretty aggressively. This is a small molecule drug that's produced through traditional manufacturing means. It's not an antibody where you need special facilities that are hard to find domestically. So I don't think that there'll be a shortage of this drug. I think now that Merck has this result in hand, they'll start partnering with other companies to produce a lot of the active pharmaceutical ingredient to make this drug.